Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Just a quick sound check now. Can everybody hear me? If you can, please type into the chat box that you can hear me. Type yes or well, can hear, whatever. Yeah. Okay, very good. Thank you so much, everyone. Welcome to today's session. It's a 3-hour session on the topic of designing a career switching strategy. All right. Now I see quite a few familiar names here on the list, and we actually have, according to WSG, about 400 people who signed up for it. And I see that in the waiting room, there's still a whole bunch of people in the waiting room. So I hope the event organizers and the co-hosts will be able to let them all in, all right, on time. But in the meantime, maybe I just share a bit about myself. Okay. As you can see from the blurb, just before I came on, I'm a practicing career coach. And it just so happened that June is the 7th year that I have had my own coaching practice. Okay, so I do it on my own. I conduct workshops like this for WSG, for universities, for organizations on all career-related topics. Okay, this particular topic is really one of my favorites because, well, it is basically what I do. 70% of my clients are basically people who come to see me who needs help and guidance in this area of career switching. Okay, so I'm very excited to share this with you, and hopefully at the end of today, you'll get something out of it. But at the same time, also, one of my biggest passion is also to train other people to become career coaches, people like myself, so that these coaches can go on to help other job seekers as well. All right. Okay. So some more other background about me. I think some people may ask, why are you qualified? What makes you qualified to talk to people about career switching? And why are you specializing in this? Well, in case you don't know, thank you, WGL. In case you don't know, on average, studies have shown that on average, a person actually changes their career 3 times. Okay, believe it or not. You might be more, you might be less. Okay, for me, I'm actually definitely one of the few people who've actually done a lot more career switching. Right. So I started off my career in IT. All right, in Big Blue. Right. For those of you who know who Big Blue is. All right. Just so the other day I went past my old building and it's no longer there in Shenton Way, Anson Road. Okay. So then I spent a bunch of years in FMCG. All right. And then I dabbled in .com, and then I went to consumer electronics. Right. And then I spent a few years in the hotel and leisure side of things, the industry. And all the while, all these experiences I've actually leveraged on certain techniques and strategies and emphasis, which I'm going to share with you today. All right. And after the hotel and resort, I actually spent another bunch of years helping out in one of the tertiary education institutes as a director for their program, the MBA program. Okay. And after a few years, I basically came out and said, yes, I think, I'm already, this year will be my 60th year. So I thought that I think it's a good time for me to sort of come out and try and help others who are also looking to maybe make moves in their career or seeking guidance in their career. So I've started off my own consultancy business called LifeWork Consulting. Okay, so now, as I said before, okay, a lot of the stuff that I'm going to share with you today are essentially things I've been doing over the past 30 plus years in my career. Okay, at the same time, these techniques, okay, I've also used successfully with all my clients who are in the process or who are interested in looking and switching careers. Okay, so I'm going to share this with you as much as I can, given the time limitation that we have. Okay, now you've heard a little bit about myself. So what I like to do now is really get an understanding of where you are right now. So obviously, those of you who are here, to look at this particular topic of career switching, you're probably thinking about it. So what I like to do is basically get you to fill up a poll, all right, to sort of talk about, maybe tell me what stage of career switching you are in and whether you are actually employed right now. So I'm going to launch this poll right now. You should see it on your screen. Okay, so you see it on your screen. Hopefully you can help me fill it out. Currently, right now, I think there are about 170 of you. So hopefully I get most people who have filled up. Thank you so much. Maybe I will just show a detail of who the results so far. Okay. Almost 70% is filled up. Very good. I'm going to keep it open for another few more minutes, maybe a couple more minutes, so that as much data can be done. So what you're going to put here will actually help me decide which area I'm going to emphasize on over the next couple of hours or so. All right. Okay. So quite a few of you are not working at the moment, right? And most of you are looking to change, but you don't know what career to change into. Fair enough. Okay, so I think we are about 90% of you who have filled up. If anybody else wants to fill up as well, I'll just leave it on for another 30 seconds or so. Okay, so it looks like it stopped. That's fine. So if I look at this, I think yours can see it on the screen. All right, so if you want, I can share the results with you as well. But essentially, if I look at it, the majority of you are not working for the moment. All right, and in terms of the career switch, most of you are in the middle part. In other words, you want to change, but you don't know what careers to change to. All right, thank you so much. So, like, essentially, whenever I work with my clients in this particular topic, okay, so they're always falling in these three categories, like the ones that you just listed out for me, right? Whether, they're not sure whether they really want to make a change, okay? There's a lot of question marks in their head. You don't know what you want to change into, which I think sounds like the bulk of you. And then those of you who have decided that, yes, I want to target a particular career, but I just don't know how to go about doing it. Okay, so given that most of you are in the second category, you don't know what you want to change into. So maybe I'm just spend a little bit more time in that particular segment. Okay, now, thank you so much for sharing the information with me. Yeah. All right. Now, I gather that the reason why you are here for today's workshop, 2 hours, you're willing to spend more than 2 hours of your precious time listening to me share with you what I know about this particular area, right? Making a career switch is one of the most challenging and difficult things to do in our career life, okay? It's challenging and difficult not because it is complex or hard to do, but it's because it takes a lot of effort, okay? Now, a lot of you may be undergoing a lot of pain, especially in this last year or so, right? What's happening now, right, in terms of the COVID, and now we are more or less moving out of the COVID, but the sentiment still stays. Why people are resigning, right, is mainly, from like what Ariana says, culture of burnout, broken definition of success. Okay, people are longing for a different way of working and living. Okay, now you tell me, can you type into the chat box, if you're thinking about a career change, what are some of the possible reasons? What are some of the possible reasons you are looking at that's making you think about career change? Can you type into the chat box for me so that we can have some understanding? Okay, passion, environment, tired of doing the same thing, work-life balance, skills hasn't been used, more money, very good. Management, definitely, we kid our bosses, change our job scope, responsibility, stability, I like that. Possibly getting back to work, looking for value in life, something to last until 63. I can empathize with that, Stephen. That's exactly what I felt as well. Better pay, lack of career clarity. All right, very good. Board, thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing your candor, being candor about your sentiments. All right. I think, if we look at it, essentially, the pain that we're going through can really be classified into a few categories, right? Okay. Whether we're talking about salary, okay, whether we're talking about some form of balance in our work and our life, okay, job satisfaction, are we really happy with the work that we're doing? And many of you, 60% of you, are also thinking about this. You're taking this opportunity because you are not working. Okay, you're thinking, okay, since I'm not working, should I then look at maybe doing something different? Okay, so fair enough. I think all very good and very strong reasons. Now, you have all these reasons here, and many people have all these reasons, but there is a reluctance. There is a reluctance and a resistance to make a change. Think about it. Why is there a resistance and a reluctance to make jump into making a career change. What about you guys? What do you guys, why, if you are unsure or you are resistant, what is stopping you from making a change? Can you type into the chat box? Worry there's a pay cut, a lack of confidence, prospects, comfort zone. Thank you so much. Inertia, I like that one. Age, fear, Bobby. Okay, okay, money, skill set, lack of confidence and age. Okay, don't know how. Very good. Okay, all very strong reasons. Skills gap, Geraldine. Thank you so much for sharing that. Experience, skills. Okay. So if you look at it, if I share with you this particular extracts that was done by a particular website, if you look at the keywords here, all right, they are saying things like fear of the unknown, fear of failure, financial concerns, all right, uncertainty. Okay, they want support. Okay, so what are the keywords? So essentially, if you look at it, and many of you have already expressed that. Okay, you don't want to take a pay cut. Okay, you don't know what's out there. You don't know how to go about doing it. So you're afraid to take the next step. You're afraid to fail, which is fine. Many of us are afraid to fail. Okay, so fair enough. Fair enough. So what I'm going to try and do over the next couple of hours, all right, we have up to 4:30. Okay, essentially is to try and go through the 3 topics for you. Okay, number 1 is to try and understand why is it important for us to realize that we need to have an ability to make a change if we want to. Okay, all right, and then we also need to understand why do we want to make a change, because that is very, very important, because that influences the way we go about doing it. Okay, we will also talk about what do we want to change into. I think most of you are interested in that, okay, since you fall into that category. And then we will talk about how you go about doing it. Okay, now a few logistics here. Now you'll notice here, in the big screen, you see me on the big screen, but at the same time, you also see me in the small speaker view, right? So very simple with that, okay? It is to give you an option, because some people have mentioned that on the big screen, because of the zoom, the lagging, my what I say and the picture there may be a bit lag, right? So you may want to look at the smaller speaker view. So you have a choice, okay? Although the speaker view tends to be a little bit small, maybe the resolution is not so good, okay? So I give you a choice for that. Now, the other thing here is this, in terms of logistic, given that we only have 2.5 hours, I won't really have a lot of time to give you breaks in between. Okay, but what I'm going to do is I'm definitely going to give you at least a halfway break. Okay, and that break is probably going to last about 10 minutes or so, right? That's a halfway break. Okay, but in between, I'll probably say maybe give you some short 5-minute breaks just to give a breather and all right, and something to think about. At the same time, you will notice that I have muted everyone. Okay, because based on past experiences, if I don't do that, then sometimes whatever you may inadvertently switch on the microphone and may be distracting to other people. Okay, so if you have any questions, please type into the chat box. But in order for me to help me spot your questions, right, put a capital letter Q in front. Okay, capital letter Q in front, then followed by your question. So when I scan the chat box, I can very quickly look at it, all right, and see it. Now, I will come to your questions at intervals, okay, so maybe after every section, and then towards the end as well. So I'm going to try and end the whole workshop maybe about 4:15, because traditionally, that tends to be a lot more Q&A towards the end. So I'm going to give everyone a chance to do it. So what I'm going to do today is really try and talk about this topic in as broad a sense as possible, so that at least as many of you can get something to work on when you leave the workshop today. All right. If you got something specific about career switching, all right, we can maybe leave it to the end and then we can talk about it. Is that okay? All right. And then also, I know many of you are probably watching this workshop on a smaller, like a phone or whatever, okay? My recommendation, if it is possible for you to basically switch it to a big screen or bigger screen, because I'm going to share with you a lot of links, okay? I'm going to share with you a lot of data and information, which maybe sometimes a small screen cannot see so well, okay? So that is the process so far, okay? Are we okay with this? If you're okay with the process, can you just type into the chat box and say it's okay? Or if you've got some concerns, just let me know. All right. All right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Okay. Now, the last time I did this, I've done this topic career switching a few times already, but the last time I did this was a full day session, and that was sometime towards the end of January. And I got to tell you, I was so inundated with requests after that, that it really prompted me to do something which I've never done before, which was actually to create a course, an e-course on this particular topic. Because, you know, many people have asked me, you know, can I be their career coach and all that because of this area? And it wasn't physically possible for me to do so and take on everyone. So I decided, and also I would think that many people may not be willing to foot up the fees that actually I charge, right? So I came out with this e-course, which what I'm going to share with you today is really an extraction of the e-course itself. And I'll talk a little bit about that later on towards the end. Huh? All right. So now, what is the outcome for today? What are you hopefully going to take away from today? Okay, so what I hope that I want to bring you through is really give you a sense that you can move forward, that you won't be hampered by uncertainty so that something's stopping you, or, you know, give you some urgency, some motivation to move forward from where you are now. Okay. I also want to allow you to have a sense of understanding what's going on out there in the marketplace in terms of hiring and recruiting, so that you can leverage on those trends itself, so that you can make it to your best advantage. And trust you me, believe you me, right? As a career switcher, you really need to understand those hiring trends before you move on to making this jump. Okay. Obviously, at the end, I hope you have the ability to decipher what options and choices you have in order to move forward, right? And lastly, but I think very importantly here is to give you the confidence, that once you know these techniques, all right, that you are able to move on and say, yes, I think I want to make a change in what I'm doing now, and this is what I need to do. Okay, all the techniques I'm going to share with you, the ultimate aim is to give you the confidence to do that. All right. So that's my goal for today. All right. Hopefully, you know, we'll be able to achieve that together. All right. Okay. So, like I said, plenty to cover. You can see all the topics that I have here. Plenty to cover. Okay. So, given, I think now we have, okay, just about 200 people here. All right. So I think it's good time for me to really go into the nuts and bolts, or the meat and potatoes, as the Westerners would say, of this program itself. Okay, so let's start with the why. Okay, so the first why here is this. Okay, why do we want to understand what's happening out there in the marketplace that's affecting the way we want to move ahead if we want to make a career change? Okay, so the first thing is I'm going to show you a short video. Okay, this video was actually done by one of my coaching students, his company. All right, and I thought it was very interesting in sort of deciphering the difference between a job and a career. Okay, and you may not know this. Many people may go through life not knowing the difference, but I think it's really, really important for you, especially if you are a career switcher. But mind you, it applies to everyone. Huh? So take a look at this. All right. So if you look at this, right, what are the key differences between a job and a career? If you look at it, as far as a job is concerned, okay, some simple facts here. You do your job because you're going for the rewards, okay? Whenever you change jobs, usually it's for rewards, okay? Greater rewards. It's work, all right? Sometimes you look at it on a shorter term basis. And if you look at it really carefully, the last 2 points is really interesting. The job is given to you, okay? And the nature of your job, the way you progress in your job, a lot of times is influenced by things outside of your control, right? Especially if you're working in an organization. So if the organization is doing well, your job will probably do well. But if your organization is not doing well, they may have to retrench. Okay, so that's a job. What about a career? What about a career? Okay, career is goal and value driven. Okay, you have things other than just rewards that drive you. Okay, so sometimes if you're looking at a career, really sometimes you change more from greater satisfaction in what you do. So it becomes a vocation. And therefore, all this combined to make you look at your career on a more long-term basis. Now, the last two, I find it very, very important and very telling here. As far as a career is concerned, you craft your career, okay? It's made by you. So you have control over what you want to do in your career. Contrast that to the job, okay? And the way you move about in your career is influenced by what you feel and what you do for yourself, by yourself, okay? It is not so much influenced by external factors itself, okay? So very key differences between a job and a career. So really, you have to start thinking right now, okay? As far as you are concerned, what are the things that you are doing right now? What are things that you want to do? Is it a job that you're looking at, or is it a career? Okay, think about this very, very carefully. Okay, if you want, you can take a screenshot of this, and then maybe at the end of today, after the workshop, we can go back and revisit this as a reflection again, because I think these are very influential and very basic factors that we need to look at. Okay. All right. The next factor here is this. Now, last couple of years, we all know what happened. All right. The last couple of years, you could be characterized by a world of disruption. Now, what I would like to argue here is that what happened in the last 2 years is nothing new, but what it has achieved is that it's basically accelerated a lot of changes and a lot of disruption that was already happening previously. It just so happened that it accelerated everything. Okay, so that was the old world of working, right? Now, we need to look at the new world of working, the new world of work. Okay, so what's happening in the new world of work? So it's not all negatives, no? I think many of you might be thinking, especially those who have been affected negatively by what's happened in the last couple of years, may think, oh, this new world is terrible. I don't know what's happening. I don't know what the hell is going on and all that. But you actually sit down and think about it carefully. There's actually quite a lot of positive things that we can leverage on. Okay, so yes, many industries were affected in the last 2 years, but there were also growth industries that were growing very well. Okay, can you all think of any industries that were growing very well? Logistics, okay, delivery, yeah. Well, some people say blockchain, crypto, right? Home entertainment, gaming, right? All those industries that were catered to the person who was stuck at home, for example. All those industries did very well. Okay. Obviously, now with the pandemic, we are towards, I would say towards the tail end, but I know industries are coming up. Okay. The old industries are trying to get back on, but the growth industry will keep on growing. So there are growth industries. Okay. Attitudes to work has also changed, right? A lot of companies have become more flexible, right, towards the way we work and the way the companies treat the employees and staff. Okay. This one, I find it quite interesting. Some companies are forced to trust the employees now. Correct now, right? Because most of us are working remotely. So the companies have to look at things in a different way. Gone are the days where you have a manager who's looking over your shoulder and looking at exactly what you do. Companies have to trust you more, right? And there's new ways to collaborate with each other as well. Okay, it's not just about sitting in front of the other person and working together. There are new ways of doing it. Okay, so the old ways, those of you who are still sticking to the old world of work, okay, these changes could be very scary, and then you may feel very helpless about what's happening out there. Okay, and therefore you find it, things are very hard to do, and because there's a lot of unknowns, and this really applies, especially now if you are thinking of looking at changing to a different career. Okay, so there are a lot of unknowns going on, and maybe you're just sitting there and waiting. You're sitting in the waiting room, hoping the old ways will come back. I'm afraid to tell you, all right, the old ways will not come back. Okay, we all have to adapt to the new way of work. Okay, the new world of work. All right, so we need to adapt. But at the end of the day, if you look at it in a more positive sense, it can be a really exciting time for every one of us. Okay, but the key thing here is this: we all need to take action. Okay, we all need to take action. So please, if you are one of those who are sitting in a waiting room, hoping for the old ways to come back so that you become more comfortable, become more used to the old way of doing things, I really urge you to relook at those sentiments and start thinking, I really need to adjust to the new way of doing things. Okay. All right. Now, the other thing, which is very, very important, and this is something here that this is a sentiment which I have actually shared with a lot of my past workshop participants about how employers look at hiring people. Okay. Employers by nature generally are risk averse. They don't want to take risks when they're looking to hire new people. Okay. They want people who can best fit in terms of skills, experience, and whatever. But more importantly, they want people who are able to solve whatever problems they have immediately or as soon as possible. Okay, so employers by nature are risk averse. So what happens? So when they're looking out for new people to hire, obviously the first thing they look at is what skills you have, what experiences you have, are you able to juggle, multitasking? That's fine. Okay, but if you look at what's happened in the last couple of years, especially where there's so much disruption, now most employers are also looking at additional, or rather these additional qualities of resilience and tenacity becomes all the more important. Okay, so even if you don't have the full complement of skills that they're looking for, but if you can demonstrate resilience, tenacity, the strength to overcome challenges, sometimes that will tip the scale to your favor. So this is the opportunity that we have as career switchers. Okay. Next thing here is this. I think all of you know this very well, so I'm not going to talk too much about this. In the old days, those of you who are in my generation, okay, you will know, in the old days, it was a straight path from A to B in terms of a career, right? But nowadays, that straight path doesn't exist anymore. Okay, it's always curving, it's always going to different directions. Sometimes we may need to take a side step in order to move ahead before we end up in our eventual destination. Okay, those of you who are familiar with sailing will know wayfinding as a term. Okay, so a small little summary for this new world of work that we are experiencing now, okay, is this. Okay, we are in a new world, no more old world. Okay, so we shouldn't be sitting in the waiting room hoping things will go back to the old ways. So we need to accept and move forward. Okay, so that's the key thing here. The other thing we need to understand is this. Okay, employers by nature are risk averse. Okay, so we need to understand this quality very, very carefully because that influences the way we approach the job market. Huh? So we need to be adaptable, we need to show resilience, and we need to show perseverance. And then we need to understand that in order to achieve career success, no longer are the days where we can clearly define a straight path. Okay, so it is still no longer straight lines. to career success, right? And really, I really want you all to take a look at this period of disruption as an opportunity, an opportunity, right? It is an invitation to get curious about what's happening in the world today. Okay, so let's start. I see a couple of questions here. Okay, I want to ask, let me just look at the chat here. Okay, I want to ask, can you elaborate on employers' risk? Well, very simple, Anwar. If you look at it, okay, let me just go back to here. If you look at it, when employers are faced with a multitude of applications to a particular job, okay, they have so many people to choose from. How are they going to select the right person? Right? They are probably going to look for a person, oh, this person fulfills my criteria for the job in terms of skills and experience, and therefore I'm going to choose the best person that has the right criteria that meets my requirements. Okay, so that's by doing that, he's already minimizing risk. So he takes lesser risk by choosing someone who meets maybe 90%, 80%, hopefully 100% of all the job the skills and experiences that he's looking at. Okay, so that's what I mean by being risk averse. He's unlikely, I'm not saying it's impossible, but he's unlikely to choose someone who has got maybe 50% of the skills and experience that he's looking for. Okay. By the way, I don't know whether you all know this. As a general rule of thumb, if you look at what is it? If you look at applying for jobs, okay, all the job descriptions out there, advertised jobs, they have a list of criteria, right? Not skills, experience, and all that. The rough rule of thumb here is that if you don't fulfill 70% of what's listed down there, your chances of getting called up, if you're applying cold, right, is actually not going to be very high. Your chance of success is not going to be very high. Okay, so typically 70% and above, if you fulfill more than 70% of the criteria, that's where they start thinking about you, whether they should call you out for an interview or not. Okay, so Anwar, I think JV has got the same question, I believe, that Anwar asked. Okay, so hopefully I answered your question. Okay, so let me see if there's any other questions in here. Okay, I don't see any other questions. Okay, good. So are we okay with this? So we understand there's a different world out there now, and this different world, the changes have been coming. It's just that this last couple of years or so has accelerated the changes much, much more. Okay. All right. No questions. Then let's move on to the next one. Okay. So this one here, why do we want to change? Why do we want to change? Think about this. Why, for those of you who are unsure whether the change is right or not, why are you even thinking about it? Why are you even thinking about making a change? Right? Now, a survey that was done in 2021, okay, basically said that, actually apart from finding better compensation or career advancement, all right, 59% surveyed that they want to find careers which better fit their values, okay, better fit their lifestyle. Okay, so fine, okay, and then earlier on, many of you have also listed down your particular reasons for wanting to make a change. That's great, but big but here, okay, if you are really thinking about making a change, what I'd like you to do, and this is an exercise which I feel would be very beneficial for those of you who are really seriously thinking about change, but really not so sure yet. You start thinking about listing down, what do you currently dislike about your current job or career? Okay. And this is the first thing I always do when I meet up with my clients. What don't you like about your current job or career? Okay. Even if your current career, or maybe your immediate past career. Because if you're thinking about making a change to a different track, you got to think about, what did I not like about what I did before? Start thinking about it. Okay, write it down. And I think this particular exercise is very easy for most people, right? Well, everybody is very easy to complain about a lot of things, which is fine. But you got to be very frank with yourself. Huh? Okay, so you write down what you dislike about your career. Right. So that being done, okay, you got to balance it up. what did you like about your previous or your current job before you even start thinking about it. Okay. So I need you all to do this particular exercise. Maybe not now, but probably after today's session. Okay. Sit down and think about it very, very carefully. Compare likes and dislikes of your current job or career. Be very frank with yourself. Maybe some of you say, I like the pay or I don't like the pay. Be very frank about it. Put it down on paper. Then compare all the factors. Then you start thinking which one is heavier, the likes and dislikes. Okay, which one is heavier? Okay, I just spotted a question down there. Let me just go back to that one. Okay, there was a question from Cole that says how to make a complete career switch if you don't have the skills required. Are you discouraging people to have total career change? I'm going to come to that in the second portion, Cole. Okay, so keep hold on your horses, hold the ball. All right, later on you can pass me the ball if I don't mention it. Huh? Okay, so you need to think about what you like and dislike first, okay? Before you start thinking, oh, I hate this job, I want to dump it and all, okay? If you are thinking that way. Now, once you have done that, then you start considering also, can I look at my situation in a different way? What is the real issue here, okay? The things that are impacting me, the way I feel about my job, is it something that's outside of my control? Is it something that I can manage? What are the possibilities that I have? What are the options that I have on the table? Okay. Again, this is an exercise. Whenever I see a client coming to me and say, I want to change career, I have a very frank sit down with that person and start going through with him, okay, or her, right? What is going on currently in their mind about their current situation? Okay. Is it possible? Is it possible for you to look at things in a different way, to reframe things in a different way? Okay. So what do we mean by reframe? What do we mean by reframe? Okay. So, those of you who are very familiar with NLP will be quite familiar with this, but essentially there are two ways of reframing. One is in context, one is in content. So let me give you an example, right? So context is really about what? It is about finding a way to represent an event or negative event or behavior in a way that has a positive value. Okay, so example here, instead of saying my job is terrible, okay, maybe what about saying that, oh, there are good and bad bits about my job. Maybe we can sit down and compare what are the good and bad bits first, so have a more balanced view. Because like it or not, many a time we are actually very influenced by the first bad thing that happens to us. Okay, so we are so preoccupied with the bad things that sometimes we miss out what were actually the good things that we have experienced as well. All right, so what I need you all to do is think about what are the good things as well as the bad things, balance it up together. So that's context reframing. Okay, are we okay with this? All right, so relook at the way you are looking at your own context right now. The other one is content. Okay, what do we mean by content? It's really about finding a way to make this event or behavior having more value. Okay, so example here. Those of you who have trouble finding a job, they say, I'm useless, I can't find a job. How about looking at another way and saying the right job is out there, I just need to know where to look for it. Okay, so reframing it. All right, so the question here now in your mind is, what is your reframe? So typically this exercise needs a bit of time. You need to sit down. That you can't just off the cuff and say, oh, I'm going to reframe it like this. You have to really sit down and think about it. Okay, so again, maybe this is a little activity or exercise you can do after today's session. Okay, how can you relook at things in a different way? Okay, now there's a question from Janice. What advice would you give to a working mom who's considering changing job or career and also plan for a family in the very near future, but afraid that she might not get hired because maybe the hiring manager might hope that this staff will go on maternity leave? Okay, Janice, very real issue. Hold the ball again, because I think that one could probably be addressed in a little while. Okay, so let's talk about that in a while. Okay, but I think what I'd like to ask you all to think about right now very seriously, look at your current situation and think, is there something else that, or is there another way I can look at everything that's happening to me? Okay. Next thing here, what is actually the real issue affecting you? Affecting the way you look at your job, look at your career. Now, I want to borrow this term that was coined by the Stanford School of Design. Okay, they mentioned this gravity problems. What are gravity problems? Gravity is something that's always there. You cannot change, right? So same thing. Gravity problems are problems that you cannot change. It happens. It's there. Okay. So why focus on that? Okay. So I'm going to give you an example of an ex-client. Okay. Janice. Okay. For our that's a pseudonym. I can't give you a real name. Janice, basically, she was affected. She was working as an accountant, right, in a company, and the company was bought over by another company, bigger company, which is not unusual, right? So she was very worried. She was looking at things. Oh, what's going to happen? I wish I don't want to. I wish that we didn't get bought over and all that sort of thing. So she was worrying about what we call the gravity problem. It's not going to go away. The company is not going to suddenly say, I'm not going to buy you anymore. Okay. So there's a gravity problem. So instead of focusing on the gravity problem, can we focus on something else? Anchor problems. What are anchor problems? Problems that are there, that's holding you back, but probably could be solved if you know how to do it. Okay. So when I sat down with Janice and started going through her issues, okay, her anchor problems, what do you think her anchor problems would be? Think about this. If your company has just been acquired by another company, all right, what do you think potentially could happen to you? When you type into the chat box, if your company were bought over by another company, what do you think could potentially happen to you as an employee in that company? Okay, you could be replaced, you could be redundant. Okay. Are those anchor problems? Restructuring? Think about this. In the case of Janice, she had those worries, but the problems that, if we analyze it together, the problems were a few things. Number one, would she have a place in a new organization? Right? Would she be able to work with the new boss? Okay. So these are two anchor problems because they could be solved, right, if she goes about it in the right way. Okay. So once she looked at this and said, oh, do I have the right skill sets to work in the same environment so that I won't be replaced or made redundant? Then she started looking at what's the new structure going to be? Where can she most meaningfully add value? Okay. What skill sets does she need to acquire? Okay. How can she demonstrate that she's able to solve those issues that the new company will be facing when they merge together? Right. So that's one. Right. The other one is this. Will she be able to get along with her boss? Then we started looking. What do you know about your boss? How can you get more information about your boss? Then she started thinking, oh, maybe I could talk to other people who have worked with him before. Yeah, or I could do some background research on what he has done before. Okay, so those are problems which are solvable, although it's dragging you down. But if you look at it, it's actually problems that can be solved. Okay, Eddie was saying, will Janice replace her boss? That was a potential, I wouldn't say a problem, right? But it could be a benefit, but highly unlikely, but possible. Okay, all right. So again, similarly for you, if you are still unsure whether you want to make a career switch, okay, remember, this whole section is addressed to those people who are unsure. They're thinking, yes, I think I feel I want to make a change. All right. If you are not so sure about it, you're still thinking about it, try go through this exercise. Try and list down what are your gravity problems. Try and list down what are your anchor problems. Right. From there, you truly understand what is the real issue that's facing you right now. Are we okay with this? All right. So this one is another activity you can do. It's a thinking and reflecting activity. Yeah. Okay. Next thing, a lot of thinking, this particular workshop. Right. Once you have gone through all those, then you start thinking, what are the possibilities we have? What are the possibilities you have in your current situation? So same analogy, same example, Janice. Okay. So when she started looking at it, her possibilities could be what? She could stay on and see what happens. Okay. She could quit, or she could remodel the way that she was doing things. I mean, when I say quit also means, she could possibly be retrenched as well. Okay. But here are three options, right? How would you choose between the three? Now, as far as Janice was concerned, she basically chose a variation of good enough for now, and she also looked at how she could remodel herself. Okay, good enough for now basically gave her a bit of time to start looking at and examining opportunities and options for herself in a new setup. Okay, things weren't so bad, right? She still had skills that were valued if she looked at it carefully. Okay, when she talked to her new boss, okay, she found that the new boss also quite excited to work with her. Now, then she started focusing on remodeling. What can I do? What can I do to try and fit in better? Or what can I do to make sure that the job that I want to do fits the skills that I have? Okay, so it works both ways. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about remodeling. Remodeling. Can I ask all of you, those of you who have done renovations or something that you change in your home and your work, or your home basically, what is the most drastic renovation or remodeling you can think of if you talk about your home? Anybody? Type into the chat box. What is the most drastic change you can make in your home if you're undergoing renovation? Total gut job, right? Hack and build, tear down the whole building and redo it again. Okay. What is the easiest? What is the easiest way of remodeling? What is the easiest way of remodeling? Anyone? Cosmetic, right? You install a shelf, maybe you shift the sofa to a certain place, right? Or maybe the midway through is that you sort of maybe tear down a wall, or you put up a wall, or maybe you even just carve out a little space and put a desk at the corner and say this has now become the study corner instead of, I think, okay, overlay change. So exactly the same way you look at your job. Exactly the same way you look at your job. Okay, I'm going to give you another example now. Okay, this guy, Tony, okay, he was working as a salesperson, right? He was working as a salesperson for a long time, but he was actually trained in marketing. He was actually trained in marketing. So he felt that, he said that, oh, I don't think I can fit into the sales mentality because I really want to do marketing. But right now, the job I have is really very sales focused. What can I do to change things? Okay. So when we sat down and worked together, then we started thinking, hey, what's happening in the industry that he's operating in now? And he found that in the industry, this was FMCG at that time, the industry was moving towards what they call account management. Okay, so it was no longer strictly sales, no longer strictly marketing. It was halfway between. And Tony suddenly felt, hey, maybe there's something I could do because I have sales experience, but I also got marketing training. Then he started looking what happens, what goes on in account management. And he started saying, hey, yes, that is something I could do. Then he dig deeper. He talked about account management with his clients, the companies, right? And they were pretty keen to work with him in that way. Then he started broaching the topic of account manager with his boss. And he started convincing his boss, hey, there's a way that we can work differently so that there's more revenue for the company, but at the same time, the customers that we sell to look at us in a different way. Then slowly he remodeled his job and he became not only a salesperson, but he became an account manager. All right. And he had salespeople reporting to him. Okay. So through the process, he was actually remodeling his job. Okay. Again, is it something you can do? Is it something you can do? All right. So essentially, when you look at changing or remodeling your job, two ways: structural, that means total gut job, okay, maybe you move to a different department, or you tweak certain things that you enjoy doing more, or you feel that you want to do, and see how it feels. Now, I'm not saying that remodeling can happen for everyone in every situation, but it is an opportunity for you to think about, is it possible for you in your organization or in the current job that you're doing right now? Okay. Now, okay, so let's take a look at some questions first before I move on to the next one. Okay. Right, so there was some question from Jesse. A career switch usually results in lower pay and start all over again. Problem is, even when one is willing to do so, many employers are not willing to take older clients. What can one who used to be a finance profession and wish to make a career switch, what are the ways to go about doing it? Very good question, Jesse. This is actually exactly what I'm going to address in the what session. Okay, what are you going to change to? Now, I think maybe give you a really quick answer first. Okay. Yes, typically a career switch usually results in a lower pay, but not always. Not always. In my case, when I made some career switches, actually it didn't happen. It didn't actually result in a lower pay. In fact, it was either the same pay or slightly higher. Now, how could I do that? I basically moved into the situation where my transferable skills was relevant to the new situation, which I'm going to tell you a bit later on. Okay, so again, Jesse, I think it's something that we want to elaborate on in a little while, so hold that ball again. Okay, all right. Okay, so remodeling is one option you can think of, but you just go through all your thinking and say, oh no, either remodeling is too much of a hassle, or there's no opportunity for me to do so. Like, for example, you go your current house, there's no point making a remodel your house because either the location is bad or it's just too small for you. That's fine. Okay, then you want to make a switch. Okay, now the thing here I need you all to think about very, very carefully, is that making a switch is really like reinventing yourself. It's really like reinventing yourself. Remember what I said, okay? Making a career switch is actually one of the most difficult things to do. Okay, reinventing yourself. So I want to share with you a little diagram which I saw somewhere else, which I thought was really good at illustrating the points that I wish to address. Okay, if you look at this, there are 4 boxes. All right, one axis is career, one axis is industry. Box 1, same career, same industry. Box 2, same career, change industry. Box 3, change career, same industry. Box 4, both career and industry change. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Can you all type into the chat box, which box do you think is the most difficult? Which box do you think is the most difficult? Type into the chat box. Unanimous, man. Everybody says box 4 is the most difficult. And you are right. You are absolutely right. Okay? So this alludes to one of the earlier questions that somebody asked me, is this. Okay? If you're looking at making a career switch and you really don't want to suffer too much of a penalty, or you don't want to go through a lot of difficulties, you don't want to suffer too drastic a loss in income, okay? It's better not to jump straight into box 4, okay? It is better to look at either box 2 or 3 first. Are we okay with this concept? Okay, so moving towards 2 or 3 is what we call pivoting, career pivoting. So you either pivot to an same industry, but maybe a different job, or you pivot to the same job, but in a different industry. Okay. And that is precisely what I did. I pivoted. Okay. So from IT, I was in sales. I pivoted to FMCG, where I moved into sales and marketing, then general management. Okay. Then I moved into HR consulting. Okay. But in HR consulting, I was in charge of a business unit. So I basically pivoted to a different industry, but I used the same skill sets. Okay. Okay, I got a comment saying that my slides look blur even on the big screen. Those of you who, the rest of you, are the slides okay on the big screen? Because I think in the past, when somebody had blurry screens, it's really because maybe the Wi-Fi, if you are on Wi-Fi, that's why it's blurry. Okay, so yep, I think most of people have. So maybe if those of you who are blurry, maybe it's because your Wi-Fi, see if you can hook it up to a hard line, if you can. Okay, so as far as I'm concerned, so coming back to this topic here, all right, so we are looking at the same career, change industry, or change career, same industry. Okay, that's basically what I did. That's basically what I did. Okay, so that is what my strongest recommendation to you is right now. Okay, if you are thinking of making a career switch, don't jump straight into box 4. Okay, consider pivoting into either 2 or 3. That is the first big thing you're thinking of. I need you to think of. Are we okay with this concept? Are we okay with this concept, all of you? All right? So you don't go to the most difficult thing. Okay, you try and stand on a strong leg. Then you explore the other options. Okay, so that is one of the fundamentals I need you to consider when you're thinking of a career switch. Okay, all right. So let's summarize this. Let's summarize this. Okay, when you are unsure whether you want to make a career change, okay, start looking at what options you have. What options you have. Really put it down, everything on the table. Okay, look at what is the real issue that's making you unhappy right now, as far as your job is concerned. Okay, is there an opportunity for you to redesign your work instead of just resigning? Okay, be very clear what you want. Okay, you may not know it now, but you have to sit down and think about it. Instead of a complete change, can you pivot? Can you pivot into something differently? But having a strong leg to stand on. All right. Throughout the whole process of thinking about change, be curious. Don't close your mind off other things. So if you have the chance, try many new things. If you are working in a company that gives you a lot of projects, a lot of assignments, try new things. Okay. Consider things may not be perfect now, but maybe they are acceptable for now. And what this does is that it gives you time to think about what your next step is. Are we okay with this? All right. So let me take a look at any questions we have. Okay, so I saw a few questions here, which I think they're all actually quite related. Okay, one question or a couple of questions was, what if I can't pivot? And the other question was how to pivot from admin role to sales job. Okay, let's take a look at the first one. Why you can't pivot? What is the, okay, first of all, I think you need to really sit down, because this pivoting is not a knee-jerk reaction. You have to really sit down and think about where you are coming from. Okay, so let's say, for example, maybe I use the example of the admin role. Let's say you are an admin role in, I don't know, maybe a logistics company. Okay, where can you pivot to? Where can you pivot to? You can possibly pivot to an admin role in a different industry, like maybe an FMCG industry, or you can remain in the logistic industry but do a different role. Okay, so that's what I mean by pivoting. Now, coming back to that question about, if I want to go from admin role to a sales job, okay, many sales job requires proven track record. You're right, they require proven track record. If you're really keen on doing sales, then, there are two ways about it. Either, which is like in box 4, you change career, change industry, and jump straight into sales in a totally different industry. And yes, it'd be very challenging. There'll be a big risk. And like what you said, okay, chances are they probably won't hire you because you've got no relevant experience. So instead of really knocking your head against the wall in that direction, why not then start thinking about pivoting? Instead of jumping straight into a sales job in a totally different industry, can you do maybe let's say an admin job in that industry first, and then prove yourself, and then get some sales exposure, get some sales training, right? Then opportunity come down the line to do a sales job later on, right? Or you do a sales job, right? But in the same industry, that you're doing now. And your strength here is that you have the industry experience. You know what's going on. Now, then come back to another question that was asked. But if you don't have the skills, then what do you do? Which actually I'm going to address in this portion itself. But let me give you a very quick answer to this. Okay. First of all, you have to sit down and understand what skills you have first before you start committing yourself to the change, right? It is about looking at what transferable skills you have, what current skill sets you have. If you've identified a place where you want to go, but you have a skills gap, right? Then what do you do? Typically, when you have a skills gap, what do? You go for training, right? All right. Or you go and do something else, which I'll talk about in a little while. Okay. All right. So hopefully I've answered those two questions, but I think in the next portion, it will definitely give you a lot more clarity. Let me see if there's any other questions. Okay. Okay. So Anna is saying, what if I've already equipped new relevant skills? Can I still go for four means different career, different industry? Yeah, you probably could. But then, you know, you may still need to do quite a few things, which I'm going to mention in the how portion. All right. But you still probably could. But, you know, if you have an opportunity to do a pivot rather than a straight jump, that's what my strongest recommendation is right now. Okay, not knowing your situation and background first. Okay, so I think it looks like a lot of people are pushing me, nudging me towards say, hey, talk about what and how first. Okay, so I'm going to do that now. All right. So let's talk about the what first. Okay, you want change, but what type of new career that you want to go for? Now, all those of you who have been with a career coach before, you know, one of the first things that they will ask you is, what do you enjoy doing? Okay. But there are lots of ways for you to identify this. And I don't have time to go through every way, right? And typically, many career coaches will tell you, maybe you can go for a little assessment test, okay? And this is what I'm going to share with you. I think probably some of you have already got that, okay? But I'm just going to share this with you anyway, right? And then this is the test that's available in the My Skills Future website, okay? So I'm going to share the link with you right now, those of you who have not gone through it. But essentially, what this test is, this assessment is really about what are you interested in. Okay, so for those of you who have done this already, all right, you will know that when you fill up the survey, I think the survey is about 20, 25 questions. Okay, you have to fill it up based on your interest, not on your competency. In other words, you are interested in it. Okay, not how well you do it. Because sometimes as agents, we confuse interest and competency together, right? Right? But you must choose in terms of interest, not competency. Because competency, whether you can do it or not, is a separate matter altogether. Okay. And let me give you an example. This was my result when I did this about a year and a half ago. Okay. As you can see there, right? When I did this about a year and a half ago, right? My results were E, A, and S. Now, what does this mean? Okay, so essentially, this assessment is basically based on the premise that people work best in environments that match their preferences. Okay, so that is the basis so far. All right, so let me try and interpret this for you using my own examples. Okay, so let me see. Everybody, okay. So is my voice better now? Somebody say it's a bit soft, but so I'm going to move closer to the mic. Okay, so let's put it this way, right? So I'm going to give you an example, right? So EAS is me, all right? So you can see here the hexagon, all right? The hexagon. So E is enterprising. So as far as I was concerned at that time, okay, I was very involved in changing the direction of my business. So I was looking at a lot of business orientation things, talking to people, you know, trying to move things along. Okay, so you can see enterprising was my strong interest level at that time. So, you know, I was trying to be sociable. I was trying to influence things happening. Okay, A, artistic. Okay, so expressive, creative, visual, right? So that basically meant that I like to do things outside the norm, okay? I like to sort of create new things happening. So when I help people, when I talk to people, I also try to do the non-traditional ways of doing things, okay? Maybe those of you who've been to my workshop will sort of realize this. Then S, social. Okay, social is under the right below here, okay, right below here, right? So basically it means I like to work with people. Okay, so when you go through the test, all right, the assessment tool, you will actually get a combination of these three letters. Then from there, you sort of decide, okay, what type of job nature will really excite you. So that's the first thing. That's the first thing, okay? Trying to decide and interpret what motivates you, what you really like to do. Are we okay with that so far? Are we okay with that? Okay, so if you have done this, by all means, good. So hopefully you're able to interpret it. Those of you who have not done it before, click on the link. Maybe after the session, you go back and do it. Okay, and then try and interpret. So, but that's not all. It's not enough to know what you like to do. Then it's the other one is what sort of skill sets you have. What are you good at? Right. So comes back to the question from somebody who asked earlier on. Okay, so this is where you start taking an inventory of all the skills and experiences that you have, but you're going to do it in a different way. I'm going to show you a different way of categorizing and listing down your skills. Okay, those of you who've been to my workshop will have seen this before. All right. You see this matrix. Okay, there are two axes here. On the top, the blue line. Okay, let me just show the arrow. The blue line here, all right, it says, I'm good at this, I'm not good at this. So that's competency. The vertical, I like to do, I don't like to do. That's preference. Okay, so you have 4 boxes here. So now your homework, if you want to really understand what skill sets you have, okay, is go and list down in each box what skills fall into those boxes. So for example, I am good at this. I like to do this. This is basically skills that you're motivated to use. Okay, motivated to use. That means you're good at this and you always like to use it. So for me personally, what I like to do was actually work with people, talk to people, okay, help them move in a different direction. And at the same time also, I like to do a lot of planning as well. So I was good at this. Okay. Below, burnout skills. You are good at it, but you don't like to do it. I'm sure you can think of a lot of those skills, right? You are good at it, but you don't like to do it. For me personally, when I was working in my corporate life, one of the things I didn't like to do was chase sales numbers. I was good at it, but I really didn't like to do it. It gave me high blood pressure. Okay, so that was my burnout skill. Developmental skill. I'm not good at it yet, but I really like to do this. So at that time, about a year ago, I could classify my developmental skills as doing video production, doing Zoom, doing video editing. That was something I'm not good at, but I do like to do it. So I started learning. I started looking at courses. I started looking at YouTube to see how I could do this. Okay, so coming back to somebody who just asked me that question, if you know there are skills that, okay, one of the things I do is to learn. Okay. Then this one, irrelevant. I'm not good at it and I don't like to do it. Okay. Hopefully you don't have too many here. Hopefully you don't have too many skill sets here. Okay. So these are things that maybe at the time where you think, it's not important. All right. Now, why do we want to list your skill sets in these 4 categories? Why? It is no longer enough for you to just list down skills you have. Okay. Because if you if you're not clear about the skills that you like to use or even the level of competency, and you just blindly list down the skills you have, you fall into the trap of choosing jobs which may not suit you, or which may, at the end, you feel that it's not right for you. Okay, so you need to put all these down. Okay, again, another piece of homework here for you to do. Are we okay with this? Any questions about this particular exercise? Anyone? Okay. Now, I'm going to have an extension to this later on, right? But this is the starting point first. This is the starting point. So I want you to list down what your skills are in this particular matrix here. Okay, if you want to take a picture of this, right? And then go back and do something about this. Okay, good. No questions. Okay, let me just close this. All right, so you can take a picture of this first, screenshot, and then hopefully you have you do this after the session itself. This, I think, is very, very useful matrix. All right. Next thing here is this. So you've listed down all your skill sets, okay? In terms of competency, in terms of preference. Next thing here, then think about, hey, okay, I've listed all those things down, things I like to do, things I'm not too good at, okay, but I want to learn more. What are my options now? How do I determine my options? Many ways to do it, but at the end of the day, it's really about talking to people, to be frank with you, right? Yes, you can find things out on your own by doing online research and all that, yep, but there's a limit to doing online research, okay? Get out, get information, be curious, talk to people who are doing those jobs. If it's possible for you to try it out, especially if you are, okay, if you are working in your current job and you feel that, hey, I want to try sales, is there a way for me to try to do some sales related topic? Like for example, I think the person who asked me about switching from admin to sales, in your current job, is there a way to, you know, maybe be closer or work more in conjunction with people who are in the sales department, get to know what's going on, and maybe try out a few things. Maybe they will bring you to see their customers and then you see what's happening and all that. Okay. Tell your story is another important part, which we will talk a little bit more at the last part. But I think this is very important because as you're talking to people, as you're trying out new things, this is an opportunity for you to then tell people, hey, you know, I'm thinking about doing something different. And these are the things that I'm thinking of. Then people would become more curious about you. People will become more interested in your development because you're sharing more stories about them, about yourself, rather, what you want to do. Okay, and now there's a point to this, which I'll come to a bit later on. Okay, so let's do a short summary on this. Okay, you need to know really yourself, what you're good at, what you like to do. Okay, this is not a solitary research environment. You really need to go and talk to people. You really need to be curious. Okay. While you're talking, do some short listing. What are the possible careers that you have? Okay, write it down. Okay. The more you talk to people, the more options that will come across the table. Okay. So your goal at this stage is really to gather information as much as possible. Okay. Get as much as possible. All right. Don't forget about working with people. Okay. You must be people-centered because at the end of the day, you want to develop relationships, which will be very, very important in the third stage. Which will be very, very important in the third stage. Okay. That was how you go about changing what career to choose. Any questions before I move on to the last portion, which is how you go about doing this? Let me just see. Okay, I don't see any questions on the table. For those of you who are at this stage, which from the survey, it seems to be the most people, okay, have I given you some clarity as to how you can go about searching for the right career for yourself? Right? It's a reiterative process. It involves a lot of talking to people, a lot of understanding what you're good at and what you want to do. Okay, CH wanted me to go back to the previous slide, which is this one. Okay, don't worry, I'll summarize everything towards the end as well. Huh? Okay, if there's nothing else, then let's go on to the last portion, which is how you go about switching careers. how you go about switching careers. This is on the presumption that you have already decided on a particular career that you want to go for. Okay, so how do you go about switching careers? Right. Remember this little diagram? It says employers are risk averse. So what does this mean for you as a career switcher, or even as a job seeker, basically, basic fundamental? When you're talking to employers, potential bosses, potential employers, okay, you have to understand this very simple basis. It is not about you. It's not about how good you are. It's not about, you know, what expertise you have. No. Yeah. It is about how you can use what you know to help them. Please remember this. Okay. When you know, when you're going to talk to potential employers, it is not about how good you are. It is about how you can help them. All right. Okay. Anwar, question: How are you going to cover on how to write CV for a new career? I probably won't have time to do this, but let's address this towards the end during the Q&A. Okay. So this is the first portion. Employers are risk averse, and because they are risk averse, you have to focus your attention on how you can help them. It's not enough just for you to highlight your skill sets. Okay, it's how you can help them. So that's one big thing here. Hopefully you can remember this. The next big thing here is this. Those of you who have been to my past workshops will know this particular chart. Okay, it's an iceberg. This iceberg represents job opportunities. What you see above the seawater, above the waterline, are jobs that are advertised. The ones that are below the waterline, typically 60 to 80%, are jobs that are not advertised. Okay, this is the reality here. You may be shocked or surprised by this, but this is the reality. Okay, when I say it's hidden, basically it's either confidential openings or jobs that are not in the public domain. All right, so you need to know where to look for it. Okay, all right, I have a couple of questions. I'll come to this later on. All right, so now if you look at this now, two factors here. Large proportion of jobs are not advertised, and you have the other portion where employers are risk averse. As a career switcher, what then do you need to do? Think about this. As a career switcher, what then do you need to do? Why don't you type into the chat box? Actually, usually when I do workshops like this, this is where I break people up and then they start thinking about it. But if you have any idea, type into the chat box. What do you think as a career switcher you need to do, knowing that most of the jobs are hidden and also employers are risk averse? Okay, WGL says networking. Fair enough. Anybody else? What else do you guys think? Be open-minded, be receptive. Okay. Approach headhunters. Possible. Get the inner circle, talk to people, write to HR directly. Again, possible, but sometimes they may not entertain you. Okay. Think about this, knowing that these are the two pillars of what's happening out there in the marketplace, in the world of work. Okay. You as a career switcher, you are coming from a situation where you may not fulfill their criteria 100% or even 70%. So what do you do? Okay. Even when you're pivoting, there are risks involved, right? So what do career switchers need to do is basically these few factors. Okay. I will talk about them individually. Okay. So being relevant, being able to illustrate how you can help them, build relationships, being very targeted and customized, and creating awareness. All right. So let's talk about relevance. Relevance. We just went through an exercise, right, on the skills, right? You all would be going through this on your own time, where you classify all the skills about competency and whether you're good at it or not. I mean, whether you like to do it or not. Okay, motivation, burnout, developmental, irrelevant skills. So you've gone through those exercises. These are based on skills that you don't have, all right? Now, what if you come to a situation where you feel, oh, I want to go into that job, but I don't have the right skills. Okay, so what do you do? What do you do? Obviously, one aspect which many people jump at is go for training, which is fine. Okay, but I really want to urge you all to be very careful about training. First thing, I have come across so many people who thinks that training is the magic potion. No, training is not the magic potion. It doesn't mean that you go for a lot of training, your chances of job success is better. No, you have to go for the right training. How do you select the right training program? You have to look at what gaps you have, what gaps you are trying to fulfill, So the skills gap. So you go for training that plugs the skills gap, right? So the training will provide you with the skills, at least the basic foundation skills that is required. Okay. No experience after training, so how? Very good. And this also applies to those of you as another way of, instead of just focusing on training alone, what else can you do? What else can you do? Right? Just training maybe not enough, right? As Yvonne just said. Okay. This is what I call career adventures. Once you use your training, okay, can you have an opportunity to go for career trial programs? Or maybe, like Silvam says, in broad term and so-called internship. Now, what is the purpose of, or even volunteering? Okay, for those of you who have a chance to volunteer and try out all these things. These are all opportunities for you to gain the experience and put the skills that you've got into practice. It achieves a few things. Number one, it gives you an opportunity to practice and allows you to ascertain whether that industry is right for you. But on the other hand, it also gives the other party a chance to assess whether you are right for them or not. And that's what the career trial program is all about under WSG. Okay. Now, where do you identify all these opportunities for career trials and all? Obviously, there are formal programs that are under WSG, which you can look into. I would recommend that as a first port of call. But obviously, the other one is that you have to dig deeper. Okay. You have to dig deeper into talking to people, which is actually the networking that I'm going to talk about later on. All right. But talk to your colleagues, friends, and all, and say is there an opportunity for you to just try things out. Now, bear in mind, when you're doing on these career trials and all that, you cannot go in with the expectation that you're going to get the same salary. Okay, please don't get in the expectation, because your purpose of going there is to gain experience. Now, the other opportunity that many people have done, okay, and I know some of my clients have done it, is that they actually do freelance. They learn the right skills that they want to, and then they actually start freelancing. They approach companies and offer their skills and say, I can do this project for you. I can do that project for you. Give it a try. Right? And then from there, they gain a reputation, they get to know the company, and then they get an insight to this. Okay, I'm going to give you another example of this client, Karen. Okay, Karen was, she is in her mid-50s. Okay, and she was actually retrenched from a job which was looking at corporate planning, and she was actually doing quite a lot of stuff, which is basically HR, corporate planning, logistics, events, and all that. Okay, but she was laid off. Okay, very rich in skills experience, but she wanted to do something different. So she took a PA role in healthcare industry, in a hospital. The PA role she was able to secure because, number one, she had very good attitude. Okay, she was able to work with senior people, and she was able to organize a lot of things. So actually, she became a PA for one of the C-suite people. Okay, but she really wanted to go back into those jobs that she was doing, but she didn't want to go back to that old industry. She wanted to do it in a different industry, in healthcare industry. So she was doing the PA role, demonstrating her capability as a PA role. to the C-suite person. So she talked to a lot of people. She demonstrated she was able to organize things. She had very good EQ, right? She sort of worked well with people. So teamwork was there. Last I heard, when her contract was up, she was offered a new role in a new hospital, but this time not as a PA, but in planning. Why and how did she get that? Because she was able to demonstrate her capabilities in that area, right? She was able to talk to people, find out from people what are the opportunities inside the company, inside the organization, right? And they got to know her well. They got to find out that, hey, she was a very good team player, very useful person to have around. And she got it. Okay? So this is a very short anecdote, which is not uncommon. And I really don't think it's that difficult if you are in that situation, right? The only thing is your own expectation. You need to manage your outlook, okay? Like I said before, career switching is not easy, but one of the biggest things you have to manage in making a career switch is your own outlook, your own expectation, okay? Don't expect the world, but be open to new situations, be open to talking and meeting and liaising with different groups of people to find out more opportunities. Okay, now training and skills, like I mentioned before, right? You've listed down all this, very important, but it's not enough. Remember this, employers are risk averse. Employers are risk averse. So you have to be an asset, not a risk. How can you be an asset to employers given the skills and experience that you have? How can you be an asset? You solve their problems. You'll be a problem solver. All right, so the direct message I have to you is that skills alone is not enough. Skills are a bridge between problems and solutions. So once you have your skills, you know what your skills are, you have to take the next step and understand what problems you solve. Okay, so this is very, very important. And this is a fundamental approach I have with all my clients. So this is where you start looking at it from the other point of view. Remember, I said, right, it is not about you. It is about how you help them. So the best way you can help people is by understanding how you can solve their problems. And this is precisely what career switchers need to do. You have to understand how you can solve their problems. And sometimes you may be surprised, solving their problems may not be strictly down to the skills that they think they know. Give you an example of Karen, right? Working in a different environment, healthcare, right? You wouldn't think that, no, oh, does she know how to do planning in a healthcare environment, right? But she could solve their problems because she demonstrated that she could organize things. She could plan operations, right? She could help to liaise with people, coordinate things. That's what planning departments do, just in a different environment. That's all. Okay? So how then do you identify what problems you solve? Okay, those of you who have been with me in the previous workshop, okay, I'm going to go through something that you have already seen before, so bear with me. But the rest of you who have not seen this, I think it's something that you want to do. So you want to eventually be able to craft problem-solving statements like this. These are 3 examples I'm going to share with you. Okay, so 1, I will solve your high staff turnover issue. How do I do this? I have extensive people management experience and a successful track record of building effective teams. I will help you expand your brand presence internationally with a lower marketing budget. How do I do this? In my previous roles, I leveraged on non-traditional marketing strategies which had greater ROIs and impactful results. I will increase the quality of your student intake, or you could always say I could increase the quality of your customers. Okay. How do I do this? In my past roles, I moved the customer base to a higher level by recrafting outreach messages and targeting the right segments. So here, you have to really understand what is the difference between problems you solve and how you do it. Now, many people start thinking about your features, how you do it first. You don't think about the problems you can solve. I urge you to flip it around. Okay, understand very clearly what the problems you solve and how you're going to do this. So I'm going to share with you a template, which I share with many of my clients and my past workshop participants, which is something very, very easy to do. Okay, so template involves 3 columns. Okay, Peng Yu, I'm not going to share the PowerPoint slide, so please take screenshots. But later on, I'm going to give you an opportunity to be able to get hold of a video recording of this article, this session. Okay, this will be towards the end of the session. Right, so template, very easy, 3 columns. Okay, my skills, problems I solve, how I solve it. 3 separate columns. Okay, now in the interest of time, right, I'm just going to go through very quickly in this so that you'll have time to actually try it out. Then we'll have time to discuss this. So let's say you have skills in people and team management. Let's say you have this skills in people and team management. So they start thinking, if I have skills in people and team management, what are the problems I can solve? What are the problems I can solve? Those of you who have got these skills, what do you guys think? What are the problems can you solve? If you have team management experience, you have people management experience. Quite a lot, right? Right? Basically, it's talking about managing people and teams. So the problem you can solve is minimizing staff turnover. Now, Bobby, managing team conflicts is how you solve it. Okay? So you see the difference now. The problems you solve here in this example would be high staff turnover. So the team conflict can lead to high staff turnover, for example. Or maybe the team conflicts can lead to unhappy members, or maybe affect the morale or affect the sales results, for example. So how you solve it is by focusing on team environment, looking at individual strengths and motivating them. Okay, so hopefully you see this clearly. Your skills, the problems you solve, and how you solve it. Are we okay? All right, I'm going to give you 5 minutes to try this out. It is now 3:38. I think this is important enough for me to give you time to try this out. All right, so let's give it a try. You just do one first. Just do one. And then if you want to share it in the chat box, by all means, then we can go through it. If not, I'll move on. Okay, but I want to give you 5 minutes to try and do this first. Okay, I see you in a while. Okay, hope you had a good break and somebody give it a try, this creating this problem solving statement. Let's take a look at the chat box so that I don't miss out anything. All right, so I think Charles shared with me a particular problem solving statement, which I think is okay, good. Okay, Charles said skills you have is pricing. All right, maybe you want to elaborate more on what you mean by pricing skills, okay? The other one, problems I solve, undervalued product offerings. How I solve it, benchmark, evaluate competitor pricing, improve product pricing to bring about higher profitability and margins. Okay, so I think the tweaking here is what do you mean by pricing skills? Okay, so just got to be fine-tuned that a bit. There was another question here from someone who says that how do we find hidden job opportunities besides using networking? Okay, so I actually have a whole workshop just on hidden opportunities. I don't know whether you've been to that one. I think there is a future one slated for that. But essentially, networking is the best way to look for it. And knowing people, because otherwise, how do you do it? Unless you do a lot of research, but sometimes research also doesn't unveil a lot of them. Okay, so Raj, the workshop I will share with you at the end of the session itself. Okay, that's where I have all the list of all the upcoming workshops. Okay, now I think there was another one. Okay, WGL wanted a slide, so let me just go to that slide that I think you were talking about before the problem solving statement. Let me just look at that. I believe it's this one. Okay, I believe it's this one. All right, so WGL, if you want to take a screenshot of this, by all means do so. Anybody else would like to share what you have done as far as problem-solving statements are concerned? Anybody else who would like to share? If not, then I'll go on to the next one. All right, so okay, let me just flash this one up. Okay. All right, so why this is important is very simple. Number one, it focuses your mind. It focuses on how you can communicate to the other party about what value add you can bring to the table. Okay, that's a very big focus. The other is that it allows you to look at companies in a different way, because now you're looking at companies and trying to identify how you help them by identifying what problems they have. So if you find that a problem that they have, like in this case, if you find that the problem they have is they have a lot of high turnover staff, then if you have very strong team and management skills, you can go in and say, I can help you with that. Okay, so this is why this is very important. Okay, Bobby is asking, how do we include this in the resume? Resume, okay, first of all, the resume is a piece of paper that illustrates your accomplishments. Okay, so here in this case here is if you know that the company is facing this issue, then you want to highlight accomplishments in this area in your resume and customize to that company itself. Okay, but also very importantly, you have to talk about it during the interview stage, which I'm going to talk about later on. Okay, so hopefully that will help you. So let me then go on to the next one. All right, so we talked about being relevant and being and how identify how you can help the companies. So the next portion, the next three, I'm going to talk about together, because by doing all the activities, you actually are able to achieve those three areas about being targeted and customized, building relationships, and creating awareness. They all come hand in hand. All right. So now, those of you who've been to my past workshops, you know that when I did the personal branding for job seekers, this is a very big factor here, because having a good personal brand will allow you to create awareness, will allow you to create positive relationships, and it will allow you to be very targeted and customized. And you do it essentially in a couple of ways. Okay, you do it by building a network, whether online or offline or both. Okay, you do this by making sure that your LinkedIn profile is crafted in a way that communicates your strong points. Okay, all right. So that is one big thing, right? Then the other thing that you need to do is really then to be very focused. Really go down and identify which company or which role you want to go for, and really craft your branding to target into that role itself. Okay, so for example, if let's say you want to go into a sales role, but you're from an admin side, okay, then in your whether it's online or whether you're talking to people, then you got to tell people, okay, how your past experience in admin is able to help maybe someone in the sales side as a first step, because you don't have sales experience, for example. And they say, oh, you know, I actually been working at admin, I've been supporting salespeople all this time, and I know what they want, and I always provide really good support and blah, 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 and all that. That gives you inroads to get into the sales department. Then from there, you at least have an opportunity to move into sales if you want to. Okay, then you start talking to your network along those lines. Then there's this other really big activity I always urge people to look at, is really conduct informational interviews. Now, we don't have time to do this, but there's a lot of information out there about informational interviews. Okay, so essentially, this is about going out, talking to people, finding information. This is not going out and asking for jobs. This is going out and finding information. And when you find information, you build relationships. Then from there, what happens? They become your supporters. They will refer to you, refer opportunities to you. And if you've really built very good relationships, they may even search the jobs for you. And this is what I mean when we talk about hidden jobs. Okay, this is where you really get into the meats and bones of finding hidden opportunities. All right. So hopefully you'll understand this. So when you're doing all this, building support and all that, few things you must do. You want to highlight skills that can be transferred to the new opportunity, to the new role. You got to be very clear about what those transferable items are. Okay, so this is where your matrix comes in, right? You have to identify which of those skills can be applied into the new situation. All right. You have to be able to adapt, that you demonstrate that you can adapt, and then you have a good positive learning attitude. Okay, show examples of how you have adapted to new situation. Show examples of how a good learner you are. All right. How you solve problems. You got to show this. Now, then somebody might ask, how do I show this in a LinkedIn profile, for example? Lots of ways to do it. For me personally, what I did is that in my LinkedIn profile, under the About section, I put down what problems I solved. I became very upfront about this. Okay. And lo and behold, actually, a lot of people contacted me because they had the same problems and they wanted me to help them. Okay. So you can do that as well. I'll show you my LinkedIn profile later. I mean, the links to it. Huh? Okay. So are we okay with this? Okay. So in the interest of time, let me move on. So I want to address the elephant in the room. Huh? What are potential employers' concerns about career switching? What do you guys think? You are potentially career switchers. What do you think would potential employers have concerns about? Can you type into the chat box? What do you think would be some concerns from potential employers for if you are switching careers? Salary, value, culture fit, skills and fit. So fits comes in again. Huh? Are you here for good? I like that one. Adaptability. Whether you're a job hopper, lack of experience, are you trainable? Very good. A lot of very good points there. Resilience, I like that, Chi Hui. Okay, very good. So essentially, I think a lot of you hit the nail on the head, right? You look at it. First thing, whether you have the relevant skills, whether in relevance in terms of skills, outlook, knowledge, experience, they will have that concern, right? Whether you have a fit culturally with colleagues, with boss, because sometimes when you change careers, you may be reporting to a boss who's younger than you. Okay? What are your salary expectations? Are you still holding on to the past salary? How long will you be there for? Okay. Did you have issues in your previous work and that's why you're changing? Are you able to adapt? So these are, in general, a lot of the issues that employers will have if you are looking at career switching. And they'll say, oh, this guy, have no experience, so I got all these concerns here. Okay. So the interview questions that they're going to ask you typically would revolve around those areas. Okay. So these are some examples. I'm going to flash this up very quickly to you. These are some examples. Why are you looking to leave your current industry? What skills do you have that can translate to this? Or here, do you have any non-professional experience? Are you certain this field is something long-term? What education you have? What would you consider, if you consider returning to your previous career, if you receive a job offer, which is actually a very real concern, okay? Then up here, what makes you feel you're suited to this? Why would you choose you over someone who's more experienced? How have you prepared? How are you prepared for the challenges of starting new and all that? Okay, so these are typical questions that you ask, and you have to be prepared for it. You have to be prepared for it. So how do you prepare for this? Now remember, at this interview stage, what it means here is that you actually already been successful, because even though you're a career switcher, they were willing to talk to you. Okay, so and they're willing to talk to you means they're willing to take a risk of you, or they heard from someone through the network. Maybe you came with good references, or somebody supported your recommendation highly and all that. So they're willing to talk to you. Okay, so that's a win for you already. Okay, so you should go in with some level of confidence. Okay, now ideally during the interview stage, your supporter, all right, the person who's referred you to them, would have sort of built you up and said, this person is good, I recommend him because of that, right? So you have to support that supporter. You have to reinforce that impression of why you are suitable for this. Okay, so you have to understand the new career and the new company expectation. You have to really do your research. Remember what I said, right? Changing careers is not easy, not because it's complicated or difficult to do, but because there's a lot of work to do. You have to do a lot of legwork. You cannot do things in a usual way where you just apply, send in an application from advertised job, and then you just hope and pray. No, you can't do that anymore. Okay, so you got to do a lot of understanding. You have to understand the company problem. So you got to research the company problem and how you can help. So all the things that I mentioned to you just now early on, you have to put that into play already. Okay. Anticipate probable questions and prepare the answers. So all those examples that I showed you just now, you have to anticipate and prepare the answers beforehand. Right? Make sure you know what you're good at. Okay. Make sure you know what you're good at. And then you practice. And then last thing here about salary. Remember what I said about salary? Okay, so it all depends on whether you're going to box 4 or box 2 or 3. If you go into box 4, because you have no prior track record, prior experience, chances are you cannot command a very high salary. But if you go to box 2 or 3, you still have some hope that maybe your salary level may not be too low. Okay, you would still have some credibility there. Okay, so you need to do your research and find out what your value is. And when you come up with your salary range, your salary, you do it in a range. You don't do it as a point. So, right? So between this and this. At the same time, you also look at anything that's non-monetary. So you must consider those things as well. So just don't be too focused on just the money value itself. Must look at other things as well. So this is something you need to think about beforehand. Okay. When you're answering questions, interview questions, use a STAR method. Okay, what is a STAR method? Again, lots of information on there, right? Your situation, task, accomplishment, and results, STAR. Right? When you're answering questions, show how you can solve their problem, whether you're using new skills or old skills, give examples, right? So you connect from the old experience to the new career. So what's transferable? So, in my old, the problem solving statements that I mentioned to you, a lot of it is using from old situation to a new situation. Okay. At every point of the contact, be enthusiastic and demonstrate a willingness to learn. Okay. Be enthusiastic and demonstrate a willingness to learn. Okay. So let's summarize this portion before I address the questions. All right. As a career switcher, okay, you can't rely on traditional job search methods. Okay. No longer can you just cold call, cold apply to advertised jobs, because your chances of success being called up for interviews will be very, very low, because you just don't fulfill the criteria if they don't know you. Right. So you have to be proactive and do a lot of things already. Right. You got to develop your own support network. Okay. So this is key. Right. So those of you who are considering a career switch, you can't get away from developing relationships, developing networks. No choice in that. Okay. Show how you can help them. Right. So again, it's not about you, it's how you can help them. You got to create your own awareness. So when you're talking about personal branding, tell people what you're trying to do, why you want to go into that new area. Okay. You got to be prepared. You got to be prepared. Okay. All right. So let's take a look at the questions. Okay. One question from Maylin: how to look for a company's problem? Maylin, do your research. Okay. How do you find somebody's problem? Either you do online research, obviously that's one, or you talk to people. Whether you're talking to people in the same industry or you talk to people in the same company through your network, you have to talk to people. Okay. But a lot of legwork to be involved. Can you elaborate more on the informational interviews you earlier mentioned? Okay. Informational interviews, basically in a nutshell, is basically you're calling up someone, all right, someone who is already in the company or in the role that you want to go in for, and basically treat them as an expert and say, hey, I'm interested in going, being in the same thing that you're doing. Can I tap on your expertise and your insights so that I know what I need to do? Okay, so that's in a nutshell, it's an informational interview. So, but it's not about looking for jobs. So it is about looking for information, insights, and then at the same time developing a relationship. Okay. STAR method: situation, task, accomplishment, results. Okay. So when you're answering a question, how do you solve this problem? Well, in the past, I had this situation. Then you describe the situation. And this is the thing I needed to do, which is the task. Okay. And this is what I achieved. This is accomplishment. And this is the result. And by doing that, I achieved X, I saved X dollars, or I shortened the project by 6 months, for example. Okay. So the STAR. A lot of examples online, so you can look at that. Alice mentioned how to prepare for hybrid type of virtual and face-to-face interviews. Essentially, they are the same. You have to prepare in the sense that you got to know more about the company and know about how you can help the company in essence. Okay. The rest of it is really small little tweaks, like for example, if you're doing a online interview, then all these things about lighting, positioning, eye contact, very important. Okay. So those are the small little matters that you need to tweak. But in the essence of how you answer the questions, how you position yourself, those are the same. Karen, if you still want to go for 4, how do you go about doing it? Karen, that's what I've been spending the last 2 hours telling you. Okay, you still can do it if you want to, but you don't have a strong leg to stand on, and your chance of success might not be as good compared to going for 2 and 3. Okay, so if you still want to go for that, then yeah, you're fine to do it, right? But just got to be you got to manage your own expectation. Go for a lot of like I mentioned, build relationships, go for training, get the right experience, and do that. Okay. Okay, Eliza, I think Eliza's question, I will share that slide with you later on. So let me just move on to the last portion itself. Okay. Okay. All right. So we have gone through the world of work. We have gone through why, if you're unsure, right? Why you are thinking about changing. We have gone through what you want to change, what career you want to select, and how you're going to select, how you're going to go about doing the change. So let me summarize all those things that I mentioned, okay, before we go into the general Q&A. It's already 4 o'clock. Huh? So first thing, the world of work is changed, okay? So you got to move on. You got to move forward. And you got to make sure you understand the basic parameters. Employees are risk averse. So you got to demonstrate adaptability, resilience, and perseverance. And you really have to understand that there's no longer a case where the career success is a straight line. Sometimes you have to move sideways, maybe you have to move backwards. Okay, so you have to think about that, right? If you're unsure whether you want to make a change, start thinking about what are the possible options you have. Put everything down. Understand what is the real issue that's bugging you. Okay, are you able to redesign your job instead of just resigning? Okay, but then you're going to be sure what you want at the first place. Okay, so how do you go about doing this? Try new things as much as you can, whether it's on the job or outside of the job. Try, experience it, be curious about a lot of things. At the end of the day, while the situation may not be perfect, but sometimes it could be just acceptable, maybe just to buy you time and so that you can explore more. Okay. Now, if you've already decided you want to change, right, then what do? You really need to know what your skills are, what your working preferences are, what your work styles is. Okay. Talk to people, be curious. Okay. I see a lot of messages here that sort of ask me, if I don't do network, can I do something else? Okay. It sort of reveals to me a concern some of you may have about reaching out to people. Okay. You can't get around this. You have to connect with people. You have to build relationships. Otherwise, you won't know what opportunities out there. You have to open yourself up. Okay, career switching is like that. You cannot do this in an isolated circle. You have to go out and meet new people, develop relationships. Okay, by doing so, you have the ability to consider different career options, shortlist them. Right? So your goal really at this stage, right, is to really gather information, but make sure you don't forget about people. It's not just about data, you also about people, because at the end of the day, you want to develop relationships. Okay, boys, these relationships will really give you a very strong leg to stand on when you are really going to make the change. Okay, so remember, a career switching strategy, you cannot go through the normal way of looking for a job. Okay, traditional job search methods don't apply anymore. You have to be more proactive. You cannot just sit and pray and wait for your job application, job letter to go through and then you get called up for interview. You have to be proactive. You have to go and develop your own network, your own support network as well. All right. And now, how do you do this? Really, you got to show people how you can help them. It is not about you, it's about how you can help them. And then you have to tell people, I want to go into this new situation. So this is what I'm going to do. Right. So create awareness, create your own news story. Yeah, talk to people about it. Whether you create a new persona online or offline, talk to people about it. Right? But at the end of the day, you have to be prepared. You got to do a lot of legwork and be prepared. Wow, a lot, huh? Hopefully, after these 2 hours, at least you get some idea here, that, there are things that you can do to move ahead, right? There are things that you can look at in terms of how you leverage on the current hiring practices and develop your own options and choices. And hopefully, what you have gathered here gives you an idea of things that you can do for the long term, rather just as an ad hoc. a tactical move. Because career changing is not ad hoc and tactical. It is actually something very strategic. You can't do it on an ad hoc basis. Okay, so that's my main message to you. So, you got to understand here, in the old days, you think about one career, one life, right? Now, I want you all to think about you have different lives within you. You can choose which one you want to do. So really, it is about a lifetime of careers. It's not about a career for a lifetime. Okay? You are your own change agent. Huh? Nobody can help you. You are the only one that can help yourself. So there's a lot of different people within you trying to get out. I'm going to share with you this framework, which I used myself in the past when I was changing careers. Okay, so it's really about finding out new things, conducting experiments. It is about expanding connections, building relationships, and then it's about telling people your new story. Okay, I find this framework very, very useful. Okay, so in terms of conducting experiments, look at what skills you have, strengths you have, being adaptable, being open. Okay, manage your own expectations, and then you just evaluate, and then maybe you need to retweak and reset things again. So it's not a straight line. You always have to revisit all your different experiments, the results of the experiments that you had. Okay, obviously support is key as well. So you need to develop your own support, and this comes into play when you're expanding connections, building relationships. And you're building relationships, you're looking at support, but you're also adding value to your network. Very, very important, value to your network. And while you're building relationships, that's where you're building your brand. That's where you're building your brand. Okay, and that's where you start telling people your story. Okay, you're telling people your story in terms of your branding, and you're doing things also. Whatever you do reinforces your brand. The way you tell people reinforces your brand as well. Okay, all right, so hopefully this has helped you. Okay, so let's talk about the Q&A for today. All right, so let me just go into this and look at all the questions you have here. Okay, so there's one question that just popped up. Okay, what if I consider a career switch to self-employed? How do I uncover options? Is there a strategy towards building such a career? How to get prepared and started? Any advice? Okay, starting your own business is probably a slight difference. Maybe the only way I can do is I share with you my way of starting my own business. Basically, I looked at what I did. Okay, the process is very similar in the sense that I chose a new career. I looked at what I did, what I enjoyed doing, what I want to do in the future. So I looked at the things that I enjoyed doing was working with people. What I didn't like about my past work, my career, was that I was too removed from working directly with people. The results I couldn't see. I basically was helping the company. I wasn't helping people. So I didn't like that. Okay, right? But what I enjoyed in the past was actually being able to work and advise people. So I thought, why don't I look at a career which allowed me to do that more directly? Okay, so this is where I started looking at starting my own coaching business, where I leverage on my own experiences. In fact, even before I started my business, a lot of people came to talk to me already about getting insights into career switching, because that's what I did. Okay, so they heard about what I did, and they started looking for my advice, and I started sharing with them, and it worked for everyone. Okay, not a single person came back to me and said it didn't work. I'm sorry, I didn't want to boast this, but honestly, everybody said that. Everybody I talked to said the pointers that I made all will help them. Okay, so hopefully this helps you too. Okay. Diana asks, building network in a new industry, is knocking doors on LinkedIn one of the ways? Yes. New industry, yes, obviously you can. All right. Connect with people on LinkedIn. Now, connecting with people on LinkedIn is very specific. Well, not specific, but the best way to connect with new people on LinkedIn is to get a referral. In other words, find somebody in common. Okay, and if you dig deep enough, you will actually find someone in common with that person. Okay, so that's the best way. You can do cold calls as well. You can. That means you just send a cold email connection request. But sometimes it just doesn't work because they don't know you. Okay. Okay. What other questions are there? There was a question from Violet. How do I impose slides onto my camera? Is there a manual link? Oh, this one technical. This one is my trade secret. No lah. It was just basically I use different software. I just looked at how YouTubers do it, and then I just adapted from that. I use a software called OBS. Okay. Okay, so let me see what else is there. Any other question? Okay. All right, so okay, WGL wanted a slide that's before change agent. So I believe it's, let me see, this one. Okay. Any other questions before I sort of go on to the final part? Okay, there was one question here. Is it the norm to, oh, sorry, I didn't share the slide. Sorry, let me just share the slide first. Okay. Okay, got it. The WGL. Okay. So now let me just okay. Is it the norm to include photo in the resume? In Singapore context, it is expected, all right. But if you look at maybe some US companies, MNCs, they don't expect it because in the US it's against the law. So it really depends on the company. Okay, but in Singapore context, it's still many companies still want a photo. Okay. Okay. What else is there? All right. So Mishra, I'm at a crossroad. I like where I am and I like what I do. Of course, salary could be better, but tentatively I'm okay with it. Mainly my work environment allows me to focus on my part-time degree and local degree. What do I do? Wow, Mishra, it looks like you're in a good place, right? So I don't know why you're even considering taking a switch, right? There must be something that causes you to do this. So I guess, many people in your position will probably still continue doing what they're doing, okay? Unless there's something that's a push factor or really there's a strong pull factor for you. Okay, so hopefully that answers your question. Okay, Mishra, starting a family. Okay, understand. Well, no, many of us, when we start a family, it's a different crossroads, right? We go on and do different things. Okay, so it's a matter of maybe you sitting down, maybe even talking to your spouse and say, what do we need to change in our lives in order to make sure that the family is in balance as well. Okay, so this is something I think you need to talk to your spouse. Okay. Okay, if I'm in a career, if the same in the company more than 15 years, will it hinder my career switch? Yes and no. Okay, yes and no. Right. So what is the impression recruiters or hirers will get if they see that you are staying in a company for 15 years? What is the impression people will get? The positive one is what? You are loyal, right? The positive one is you are loyal. What is a negative impression? The negative impression is that you're stuck in your ways. Okay, so the thing you want to address is a negative impression. So you have to think about all the possible negative impression, not willing to learn new things, stuck in your way. So you have to demonstrate. You have to demonstrate to the potential employer that no, you're willing to learn new things. Maybe in the 15 years you've been exposed to different roles. You have to illustrate this. Okay. And in your 15 years, maybe you've been exposed to different environments and all that. So you're adaptable. So you have to illustrate that. Okay. So it's not just about 15 years within the same company. It's more about what you did within those 15 years. Okay. Okay, Linda, just came back from interview earlier. Congratulations. When will I check with them to proceed for the next step? Well, I think the best thing to do is that maybe tomorrow you write a thank you email to them, right? And just say, thank you for the opportunity of meeting up. I look forward, and then maybe, I'm excited to start this work. Whatever you shared with me was really good. Please do let me know when I can expect I have the opportunity to meet up with you again to close things. All right. So that's how I will go about it. Okay, especially if it went well. Okay. Can I know if it looks back, if my CV shows many jobs? I've been in the workforce for close to 15 years so far and worked in 6 companies and maybe a few more until I retire. 6 companies, 15 years, not that many. Okay. I've seen more. Okay. So nowadays it's not that uncommon. It's not uncommon at all. In the old days, yes. In the old days, yes. But now it's not so uncommon. Okay. So it's more important to illustrate what you did in those stints in the companies and why did you move on. Okay. It's more important to sort of illustrate that. Okay. Imposter syndrome. Okay. Imposter syndrome, basically, if I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong, GT, all right? Imposter syndrome is basically you telling yourself that you really can't do the job. Okay. Now, career switching, when you want to make a career switch, it's really about being confident in yourself. So how do you be confident in yourself? It's really about knowing where your strengths are and how you can add value to the table. So you really need to be have conviction about that. Okay, so even before you talk to people, you need to be convinced about yourself. Okay, so that's the key thing here. All right. How to answer employer that mentioned you are overqualified for the job? That's quite common, huh? That's quite common. So let me just let me just go back to this portion again. Okay. Overqualified means what? What do you think when a company tells you you're overqualified? What do they mean? Anybody? When company tells you you're overqualified, what is it really? What are they really thinking about? Age. What else? Salary. Okay. What else? Is it only age and salary? Whether you can get along, right? And whether you stay long. Okay, so that is the hidden meaning behind when they say you're overqualified. So you have to address those things. If it's age, okay, they think that you're too old, then maybe you have to really start thinking whether that was the right company for you. Because most companies should not be saying that you're too old for the job, unless the role itself looks for a young person. However, if they say age is because maybe you can't get along with this, they're afraid that you can't get along with young people or you can't get along with your boss, then you have to show examples in the past of how you managed to do that or how adaptable you are. Give examples. Okay. If it's pay, then obviously you have to sort of manage your own expectations about pay. Now, the way you do about pay is really looking at what value you bring to the table. If your experience that comes with age is really valuable to the company, then obviously you're in a better bargaining position. But if you are totally in a new company, new experience and all, then obviously, even though you have a lot of experience in the past years, all right, you have to convince them that what you bring to the table is valuable to them. Okay, and that's where then you start talking about pay. You may not get the pay you want, the high pay you want, but at least it's a starting point where you can start negotiating. Okay. Qualifications, usually, what does it mean? Qualifications, usually, it's not really talk about qualification, it's about your expectations of pay. If you are a master's degree, you go for an undergrad position, they'll be wondering, you're a master's, you can go for other position, why are you coming for undergrad? So it's talking about pay, also talking about how long you will stay, how long you will stay. So you have to address that concern. Okay. Okay. Question. Would writing directly to the CEO of a target company to suggest a need for a role not currently being considered by a company but will become essential going forward? This is a tricky thing, WGL. Okay, tricky because sometimes CEOs really, they may not entertain such thoughts if they don't know you. Okay, so but there are CEOs who may be open. It all depends on the person. So how well you know the person. So a better way I would suggest is really to network with the person that maybe talks to the CEO, or if you can network with the CEO, even better, or establish a relationship directly or indirectly with that person, and then build a relationship, and then just talking about how you can help them, what you think about the company, value add. Okay, so you can only suggest something like this to the CEO if you have a relationship with that person. If you do it out of the cold, you may run a risk that they think you are talking nonsense, that you don't know them, or they just dismiss you straight off. Okay. Okay, question. How is SME and MNC different in the kind of candidate they look for? Two aspects. Number one is the role. The role of SME and MNC very different, right? So the roles can be very different. So the role will influence the type of people. But if you're talking about the person, as SMEs typically will expect people who can be multitasking, who can do a lot of things differently, and who's comfortable working in a smaller environment. Okay, and sometimes they really look at people who are willing to put in the hours. Okay, I'm not saying that people in MNCs don't do that, but SMEs usually tend to look at that way. But they can't pay you well. Okay, they can't offer you the fancy, benefits, and also the fancy upgrowth path. So you have to be able to accept that, or maybe grow your own path. Okay. Okay. How honest can we be during interview? Any techniques that you advise? I always tell my candidates to be as honest as you can during interviews. Don't bluff, don't lie, because whatever you bluff or don't tell the truth, it will come back to and haunt you. Okay, so I always tell people, no, but it's not so much whether you tell the truth or not, right? I always say you must tell the truth, but it's how you tell it. It's how you tell it. You got to tell it, you got to sort of angle that whatever you say in a positive way that reinforces your own brand. Okay. All right. Any other question? Okay, so let me just do this. Okay, another question. During interviews, if I ask what weakness do we have, how do we answer? This is very typical. I think in the old days, we always, the standard practice is to say we angle weakness into a strength, right? But now because it's so cliche already, a lot of interviewers tend to say, yeah, that's been done before, so what do you say that? Right? So all depends on how well you know the company. Now, but I will still go around and say, what you bring to the table. So even though it is a weakness, you can be honest about it. Say, for example, it takes a long time for me to sort of understand a project because I'm very detail oriented. But then you would in a but, okay? But the details help me get the job done in a much more precise way. So that's why in the situations that I have, I really tend to, although I take a little bit longer, I tend to make sure it's successful. Okay, so that's how you do it. Okay. Okay, I left my previous workplace many years ago and stay home mom, now hard to provide references. How? Okay, again, back to work moms, people who have not been in the workforce for a long time, your challenge is really how you establish relevance. So relevance can come in many ways, okay, not just references alone. Again, it's about networking. It is about understanding where you want to go to. It is about getting the right skills and experience, getting the right, how should I put it, the exposure. Okay, so all the things that I mentioned there along those lines would apply. Okay, so it's not just about references alone. Okay, why do you want to leave your job even when you have a job now? Well, you have to answer that. You have to be honest. Why do you want to leave the job? You have to, I think this one came from Alice. You have to be honest and say, why do you want to leave the job? Okay, you can't lie about it, right? So you have to answer yourself, but you got to put it in a positive way that it doesn't influence your decision about joining their company. Okay, so for example, you're saying you want to leave a job now because what, the opportunities are not there for growth, or maybe you're saying that the company is undergoing massive downsizing exercises, so I'm trying to look forward for different opportunities. All those things could say that. All right. If you say that, if really one of the reasons you want to leave the job is because the pay or the boss is no good, right? What I suggest you do is that you're saying that, I believe I can help more in the table, and I'm looking for a new challenge, rather than saying the salary is too low, right? If you can't get along with your boss, then what you can say is that the work environment has been very challenging for me because I prefer to work in this way. So I'm looking for something that is a different context, for example. Okay. Very good questions, by the way. I'm in the education industry. However, outside industry, people always see education industry as lazy. Nope. Lillian, nope, not true. I was in education in the sense that I was looking after programs and all. In fact, teachers are the most hardworking people I know, So I don't know where you get the information from. Okay, Esther, I have an interview tomorrow from healthcare. How should I show myself from manufacturing sector to healthcare sector? Same job title, improvement role. Okay, Esther, first of all, congratulations. First, they call you up for interview means they have see something in you. So you got to understand what they see in you and reinforce that, right? So you got to see that maybe it's the same experience that you had before in manufacturing that you can bring to the healthcare sector. So you have to understand what it is. Okay, so you got to emphasize on that, right? Or maybe it's because they saw what they it's true recommendation. If it's true recommendation, then you have to reinforce what they recommended about you. Okay, so that's my general. Okay, what is the success factor in career pivoting? Very simple, Ling. Okay, success factor in career pivoting is really making sure you have a strong leg to stand on, whether it's the same industry or whether it's the same job. Okay, so you have to make sure that you have a strong leg to stand on, and then make sure that you can apply what you have in those in that strong leg and apply it to your new leg. Okay, so that is a success factor here. Okay. All right. So let me quickly move on to the last portion. All right. I think those of you who have been to my past workshops before, maybe some of the things that I'm going to mention in the bonus section, you have seen it already. So you can leave, but I think there's one or two things that's probably new to you as well. So you may want to stay on for that. So let me go into that first. Oh, hang on. I think the summary, I still got some more. Sorry, yeah. Let me just go into that. Sorry, let me just. Okay. So the summary part, so this is something that WSG has asked me to advertise to you all. So I think you all have seen this in many other workshops already. So I'm not going to elaborate on this, but I think the different workshops that they are coming up for are under the framework of Career Grid. Now, I cordially invite all of you to connect up with me on LinkedIn. Okay, so this is my LinkedIn ID. At the same time, if you want to also go into the Facebook page, where I basically regularly update opportunities for jobs and career tips in there. So you can look at that as well. All right, so let me send you the link to that one first, then in the chat box, so that it's easy for you to connect up with me. Let me just do this. Okay. All right, so that's the Facebook group. So hopefully, I will see you all in there. Now, some of you has asked me about the future workshops. Okay, you can't add me on LinkedIn. That's strange. I think you just maybe look up my name lah. Okay. Okay, workshops. Thank you. So this is my upcoming workshops. Okay, so 22nd July, developing innovative mindset. 17 August, attacking the hidden job market. I think there was one question on hidden job market, right? So you can go for that. 14th of September, coping with change. All right. So those are my future workshops. Hopefully, I see you there. At the same time, if you can give me an opportunity to sort of fill up the survey, let me just, the WSG survey, which is the usual thing they ask you all to do, so that you all can provide feedback. Let me just copy the link as well. Okay, so I copy the link into the feedback link into the chat box. Okay, the link to join the upcoming workshops is the same place you signed up for this workshop. This workshop is under the WSG framework. Okay, so basically you just do the same thing when you sign up for this workshop. It's in the same place. Okay, so so hopefully, Karen, that's where you can go about it. All right, so the next portion that I'm going to share with you is basically the small bonus session. So if those of you who have seen my past workshops, I'm fine if you want to leave. But for those of you who are new to me, maybe you want to stay on and just understand what those bonus portions are. All right. So I'm going to give you maybe a minute or so to fill this up. All right. Fill up the survey, and then I'm going to come back and talk to you about the bonus sessions. All right. I see you in a while. So let me go into the bonus session. So essentially, I want to give you an opportunity to sort of go into my mailing list. All right. So here is the part where you can sign up for the mailing list, so that I can share with you two things. Number one is the video recording for today. Okay, those of you who are interested in the video recording for today, I'll need you to sign up in the mailing list so that I can send this to you. The link is in the chat box. All right. At the same time, you will be on my mailing list in terms of new items, new opportunities that come up. Okay. So new workshops and all that. Okay. So that's one. All right. So the link is in the chat box. That's one thing. Okay. So if you're interested in sort of hearing more about future new things, by all means do so. Okay. So the next thing here is this. I think I mentioned earlier to you about the what I did in the last time I did this workshop, which was a full day workshop. Then everybody came back to me and prompted me to actually do an e-course. Okay, so this is the e-course that I've come up with. Essentially, it is an expanded version of what you have gone through over the 2 hours, but it includes a lot more stuff like templates. It includes spreadsheets, a lot of the tables that I just included, plus other new things inside there as well. All right, so a lot of stuff down there. And essentially, you know, the way I've done it is that I'm offering this as a special to people who've come to my course. Right, so this is something that you can apply for, and it's only open to people who have come for the workshop. If you want to, again, no obligation. You can actually go and take a look at it. I'm going to paste the link again in the chat box as well. Okay, so there's another link there for you, right? So there's a money back guarantee if you want to sort of take a look at the thing itself. Now the next bit, I'm sorry, Lillian, can't use SkillsFuture right now. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, the next thing I want to share with you, okay, is actually something that I don't normally open to workshop participants because it's very specialized. Okay, I think I mentioned to you all earlier on that I actually train people to become career coaches. Okay, so I regularly open up the courses, but this time round, I've been asked to maybe open it up to my workshop participants because I think in the past there were some who came back to me and were interested in becoming career coaches. So there is a new course that's coming up that I'm starting. Okay, starting from 19th August onwards. Okay, so 6 sessions, 4 hours. So if you are interested in attending this course as a career coach, by all means email me. Okay, I will give you my email now. So hang on, so that you all can write to me, then I'll give you the information from there. Okay, so this is a certified career coaching course, so it's internationally certified. Okay, so what else is there? So this is basically the additional bonus, which I don't normally open up to my normal workshop participants, but somehow lately a lot of people have been asking me, hey, put it in there, put it in there. Okay, so I put it in there for you. Okay, all right. So I think that's about it. So this is just a summary of all the links that we have, but the links are also inside the chat box, so you can click on that as well. So any final questions? It's already 4:34. I've exceeded my time, 4:34. Okay, so there's still about 150 people here. So I'm sure that I gather there could be some people who are still interested in asking questions. So by all means, ask me. Anything anybody else wants to, or did I miss out anything? I hope I didn't miss out anything. If I did miss out, my apologies. Maybe you can type it into the chat box again, what I missed out. I will also open up the voice so that you can unmute yourself if you want to. Okay, so now you have the ability to unmute yourself now. Okay, anybody got any questions? Anything you want to ask that we haven't already addressed? Okay, for those who are interested in a career coaching course, why don't you email me? Okay, because I don't want to sort of highlight this too much here because it's really not that relevant. But if you're really keen, you just email me, then I'll tell you more information. Okay. If there's nothing else and you guys are eager to go, by all means, thank you so much for staying for the last couple of hours or so. Really glad to have you on board. The questions were very good, very interesting. And I hope that, you know, you found things useful from my end of sharing. At the end of the day, I wish you well. You know, career changing is not an easy topic to go about doing it. But I hope you have every success. You know, go about making it productive and fruitful for you.